أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، الغر الميامين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. ثم اللعنة الدائمة الأبدية على أعدائهم ومخالفيهم وغاصبي حقوقهم ومنكري فضائلهم ومناقبهم أجمعين، من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. لبني النبي مكارم الأوصاف، لبني النبي مكارم الأوصاف، فهم الرجال بسورة الأعراف. فلكي تفوزوا بالجنان وتفلحوا، صلوا على آل النبي الأشراف. قال سيدنا ومولانا الإمام زين العابدين وسيد الساجدين عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: قلب ليس فيه شيء من الحكمة كبيت خرب، فتعلموا وعلموا وتفقهوا ولا تموتوا جهالا، فإن الله لا يعذر على الجهل. صدق مولانا وسيدنا رسول الله، لذكره ولذكر أهل بيته. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Every single one of us, at least one in his life, should ask himself or herself some questions. The first question that we should all ask ourselves is that, where do I plan going? What do I want to achieve? The second question is where and how am I going to study and research so I can reach my goal? So the first question is, where do I plan going in my life? What do I want to achieve? The second question is, how am I going to reach that goal and that achievement? And then the third is that how will I measure, on which basis will I be able to measure my success? Because each one of us will have a goal. Each one of us will want to achieve a specific thing in his life. But success has measurements. To be able to call yourself successful in life, you need to find out the measurements or those points, those things which you can relate to your life and be able to say that I have been successful. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, as he is the prophet sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord and the Creator that sent him, the first ayah, the first verse that he sent to his prophet when he was in Ghar Hira was Iqra. This is another point that we should always remind ourselves and remind those who comment negatively against Islam and Muslims when they say that Muslims are ignorant, Muslims they don't know, Muslims they can't live alongside a democratic system. We have to tell them that our prophet, the prophet that we follow, calls for education and knowledge. Because his Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first thing he revealed upon him was read and write. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. Islam concentrates on these points very much. The points of education. Educating yourself. Through educating yourself, you are educating your community. Islam always calls mankind, whether male or female, to continuously educate themselves. Because if I am not educated, if I don't have any kind of idea about my life, how to progress along the steps and the ladders of life, then I will have a negative impact on my community. If I am ignorant, I will act ignorantly in my community, in my society. Instead of being a positive aid to my community and my society, I will be a bear on them. I will bear negativity against my community. Here, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam has many ahadiths and riwayat encouraging and pushing Muslims specifically and mankind generally towards education and knowledge. Even if it is that you have to travel a long distance. اطلبوا العلم من المهد إلى اللحد. From the first moments that you open your eyes and start understanding the reality of life around you, Islam calls upon you and me to go and educate ourselves. And education does not stop at a specific point in our lives. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says when you start seeking knowledge and you start educating yourself, you should not stop until death makes you apart from this world, until you leave this world. اطلبوا العلم ولو كان بالصين. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam was sent to people in the Arabian Peninsula, إلى الجزيرة العربية. Now if you think about where the Prophet was, in Mecca, and where is China? It's a different part of the world. If it took days for people to travel between Mecca and other parts of that part of the world, days, weeks, how long will it take for someone, if they wanted to seek knowledge, to travel from Arabia until China? And why China? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam chose China because China in those days was a hub for knowledge and education. Okay, their knowledge and education might be different from the knowledge and education that Islam and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam was calling people to go and read and learn from and about. But it's a metaphor. It's just an example made by the Holy Prophet that even if it means that you travel from one distance, from one location to another location, even if it's far, you should do it. Why? As I said, because education plays a very important role in not only your life, but the lives of your family, your wife, your children, and then your children will grow up. They will convey and take on and move on what they have learned from you and pass it on to the next generations. Now, if the father or the mother are ignorant, if the father or the mother, they have not studied and they have not educated themselves, or they have stopped, they have gone to school, they have educated themselves to a certain extent, to a certain level, how are they going to be able to help and teach and educate their children once something new arises and they have to teach their children about it? That's why the continuation of education is very important, even until the last moments of our lives on the face of this earth. The hadith, the narration that I started the majlis with, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam explains, قلب ليس فيه شيء من الحكمة كبيت خرب. Now here qalb, sometimes in the hadiths of Ahl al-Bayt, doesn't mean the literal heart. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam and Ahlul Bayt, when they talk about qalb, when they are speaking about knowledge, they mean the existence of man, the intellect, the soul. قلب ليس فيه شيء من الحكمة. A heart, a soul which does not have within its confinements a type of wisdom, or wisdom is like, and the Prophet gives us an example, it's like a ruin, it's like a broken house. كبيت خرب. Can you live in a broken house? A house that does not have any electricity, does not have any water, does not have any suitable shelter, any roofs, any ceilings. No one will be able to live in that house. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. And then the Prophet continues. Now the Prophet is saying something, and we have to take the wisdom from the sayings of Rasulullah. The Prophet says, فَتَعَلَّمُوا وَعَلِّمُوا. Educate yourself and then teach. So you don't go and educate yourself and close the doors on yourself and that's it. علم بلا عمل كالشجرة بلا ثمر. The tree that is without any fruits, without any results, there's no use of that tree. It's a dry tree. People will not be able to benefit from it unless they cut down that tree. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi says, if you have knowledge, but you don't practice your knowledge, and you don't pass on that knowledge, there is no use to it. It's a waste of time. There are some of us, we know a certain thing. We know how to live our lives. We have some knowledge about Islam, but we don't practice it. Here Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam says, فَتَعَلَّمُوا, learn, and when you learn, you practice. After you learn and practice and use your knowledge for yourself, you will have to teach others. فَتَعَلَّمُوا وَعَلِّمُوا وَتَفَقَّهُوا. Now, what is the difference between تَعَلَّمُوا وَتَفَقَّهُوا? Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, through this hadith, is trying to differentiate between the worldly knowledges that we have around us and between the knowledge which is specific to Islam and Quran and Ahlul Bayt. Go and educate yourself. On the other hand, educate yourself in terms of fiqh and Islamic jurisprudence and Islamic law, because both help you to live your life in a successful manner. Another hadith from the Holy Prophet. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ليس مني إلا عالم أو متعلم. Those who say we are from Rasulullah, we follow Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وآله, they should either be ulama or they should be طلاب علم. So if you say, I am a follower of Islam, I am a follower of the Holy Prophet of Islam, the Holy Prophet, Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want an ignorant follower. When we say we are followers of Ahlul Bayt, but we neglect the knowledgeable aspects of Islam, our relationship towards Allah, towards the Quran, towards Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt is just a very simple, up to the surface relationship. But once you dig deep inside my relationship with Ahlul Bayt, you will find that my relationship is just a shallow relationship. There is no depth to it. That's why those who are uneducated with the Islamic knowledge or the general knowledge of the world today, once they are attacked or moved by some of the currents, the negative currents around them, you will see they will fail and they will break straight away. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi is saying, لَيْسَ مِنِّي. The Prophet doesn't want that person who is ignorant. لَيْسَ مِنِّي إِلَّا عَالِمٌ أَوْ مُتَعَلِّمٌ. Another riwayah from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. لا خير في من كان في أمتي ليس بعالم وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله ليس بعالم ولا متعلم. This person is not worth anything if he knows that he has to educate himself or herself and neglects to go and educate themselves. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam is saying, La khayra fihi. This person, their being, their existence, and them not being present, siyan, same thing. Mawjud, ma mawjud is the same thing. Maybe sometimes their existence is negative because he's taking time, he's taking space, he's taking resources. This is how the people of Jahiliyyah, before the arrival and before the bi'thah of the Holy Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him and his holy progeny, before the Holy Prophet was sent to the people of Arabia at the time of the ignorance, they used to think the existence of their female daughters was useless. They are taking space and time and resources. Why? Because they used to think that this girl in my family, I will have to spend on her. She will eat, she will sleep, she will need me feeding her and clothing her. But what am I going to receive in return? But if I had a son, this is how they used to think. When someone was congratulated by his wife or his family members that he had been granted a son, you see him, he is happy and pleased, and he makes parties. Why? Because this son will grow up, he will be able to carry the strength of his clan, attack, go and loot, go and steal, go and kill, and come back with the wealth and money of other tribes. Islam came and said, no, this is not the system of a good Islamic society. A good Islamic society gives equal importance to the female and to the male. Both are important in Islam. Hence, through the riwayat and ahadith of the Holy Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, we see them, they speak in general. They do not specifically speak about the male or the female once they are speaking and encouraging people to go and seek knowledge. I will repeat the hadith so we can remind ourselves about them continuously. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ليس مني إلا عالم أو متعلم لا خير في من كان في أمتي ليس بعالم ولا متعلم. Leaving the education and the teachings, or learning education and teaching yourself, is the best way and the best method you can seek to take away all of the problems in our societies. Today, we see that there is a big clash, a big gap between the youngsters, the youth, and the elder generation in our communities and societies. Why? Because the elder generation are at fault from one angle, and the younger generation and the youth are at fault from another angle. Now let's come and discuss where the adults and the younger generation, the boys and girls, the youth in the community, could come and put hand in hand so they both can work together. Before I do that, let's do a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Why do we see that there is this discrepancy in the Islamic culture, in the Islamic ethics, in the Islamic morals between the leaders and the elders and the family members, the parents, the mothers, and the children and the youth and the young adults of our communities? Maybe one of the points is that the elder generations, the mother, the father, did not realize the importance of the three stages that Imam Ali alayhi salam speaks about when you should divide the life, the early stages of your child into three stages. And this is a formula that we, the parents, the fathers and the mothers, the elder generations in the community should bear in our minds. The first 7 years of the life of your child, he has to play. لاعبه سبعا. Leave him to enjoy himself. But what is important is the next 7 years. So the first 7 years, he is a Sayyid, he is a master. You do not come and shout in the face of a master. You do not slap a master. You do not stop the master from enjoying himself. The second 7 years is the 7 years where the father and the mother should spend their most power in educating the child. As soon as they start completing 7 years and start going into the 8th year, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The Imam says, as soon as he goes into the 8th year, you, the father, should bear in your mind that this is the start of my literal responsibility towards this child. Why? Because the Imam says 7 years he had spent playing and enjoying himself. Sometimes we hear parents saying, leave that child, and he is 8 or 9 years old. Scientists, they say the child when he is 7, when he is 6, when he is 8, 85% of their mind and their brain has been completed. We hear parents, fathers or mothers or elders in the community, they say, أيف هذا طفل هذا ما عنده عقل ما يفتهم. No, this is wrong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the first early stages of this newborn's child, starts to develop his mentality, his brain, his intellect. That's why when you give a little child a gift, you see him, he's happy, he's pleased. Or when you shout in his face, he is upset, he cries. This is a simple test to know if this child is understanding himself and the environment or not. So 85%, 85% from this child's mind has been complete. Now you have to deal with him according to 85%. When does his brain and intellect complete 100%? That is left to the later stages of life, when he starts gaining experiences from his own life. So the second 7 years of this child's life is important for the father and the mother and the local centers and the local communities to enhance their pressure and their energy in developing the knowledge of this child. It's a time, it's a marhala where the Imam and the Prophet says they need to learn about Islam. Now, how many youngsters do we know that they have memorized the Holy Quran in that lifespan? There are children who have memorized the Holy Quran when they were 5, when they were 6. There are children who memorized Nahjul Balagha when they were 7. So it is up to us, the adults, to start educating them at that stage. And when they complete the second 7 years, they enter the third phase The third 7 years, when they enter the age of 14 and 15, then the Imam says, Sahibhu, be a companion to him. Or in another hadith, the Imam says, treat him as your ambassador, or treat him as a wazir. Speak to him, negotiate with him, take his ideas, let him share your experience and share his knowledge. Tell him, oh son, oh daughter, what do you think if we do this in this manner? What do you think if we do this today and do that tomorrow? What do you think if I buy this? What do you think if we wear this color today? The Imam emphasizes on this. Why? Because he will develop this sense of respect and the sense of need. And when he reaches the stage, when he passes the teens and fatrat al-murahaqah, the time span where he is departing that lifespan of being a teenager, then you will not have any trouble communicating with him. You won't have a trouble. You won't find this clash. You won't find these problems that today we see between families and their children, or between communities and the youth and the group of youth. Because there is no use, there is no point to come and wanting to start to educate a teenager when he is 17 or 18. Why? Because this is the time that Ahlul Bayt come and explain to us that this is the time when two of the very most important sources of energy burst in the existence of this mankind, of this youth. It is atifah and aql. Atifah, gharaiz, his needs, his desires. It is of a big mistake to come and want to stop a teenager from a thing that he wishes to do. But when do you have to control and teach him to control his desires? Is when he is in the second phases of his life. Yarhamkumullah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'll give you a story. Al-Shaykh Kashif al-Ghita, one of the ulama and the knowledgeable scholars who was in Najaf al-Ashraf. In Najaf, there were many ulama who took Najaf to be a place of their worship and their education and their teaching. One of them was Al-Shaykh Kashif al-Ghita. Shaykh Kashif al-Ghita used to wake up in the middle of the night, around 1:32 in the morning, go to the shrine of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and engage in Salat al-Layl and the nightly prayer until Salat al-Subh, and then he used to come back. After a while, he started noticing one point, is that he had a 16-year-old son at home. He said to himself, why am I going, praying Salat al-Layl, this act of worship which is full of thawab and energy, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward me for doing this act, and my 16, 17-year-old son spends that time sleeping at home. Let me take him with me. Shaykh Kashif al-Ghita came the next morning. In the middle of the night, the son is fully asleep. Son, wake up. We need to go. The son said, okay, I will wake up. And you know what happens. They say some things, they speak to you, but they do not realize what's happening. The Shaykh went, did wudu, came back again. Bunay, son, wake up. I want you to come with me. The son said, okay, I will come. He went back to sleep. Third time, the same thing. The sheikh is looking at the time. No, Salat al-Layl is going to go. Fourth time, he came and woke him up. The son woke up. Father, what's the time? What's happening? He said to him, oh son, I thought to myself, I would wake you up and you would come with me in the middle of the night, go to the shrine of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib and join me in Salat al-Layl. Now here, the first time, the son waking up in the middle of the night. All right. In Haraj, he was shy. He didn't want to say no, oh father. So he woke up, he washed his face, did wudu, accompanied with his father to the shrine of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Now Sheikh Kashif al-Ghita started thinking with himself. Now I have forced my son, I have woken him up, as a youth, and that's early stages. He likes sleeping. Why? Because he was tired. During the day, he has spent his energy more than the adults. Adults, you see them sleeping, but when they need to wake up at a specific time, they wake up quickly. He said to himself, I have forced my son, يعني غصبا عليه. I have pressurized him. Now he's not going to like or love Salat al-Layl. How am I going to explain it to him? So he loves it. They came to the doors of the shrine of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. Sheikh Kashif al-Ghita noticed a poor man sitting, begging in the middle of the night. He faced his son and said, oh son, what do you think that man is doing? The son said, oh, he's begging. He needs money. The father said, okay, how long do you think he's been sitting there? The son said, okay, maybe from the beginning of the night, and he will stay there until Salat al-Subh and he will go. The father said, how much do you think he's going to receive? The son said, maybe 10 dirhams. 10 dirhams. 10 dirhams at that time wasn't a big amount of money. The father said, okay, do you think he's got a wife, children, a home? The son said, yes, of course. If he didn't have, he wouldn't have been spending the middle of the night not sleeping, which is the best thing you can do, and sit down at the doors of the shrine begging. The father faced his son and said, okay, he has left his sleep. He has left his family, the comfort of his home. He is sitting by the shrine of Imam Ali begging, and he will receive 10 dirhams and go home. But don't you think spending 1 hour of your sleep in engaging in an act where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you with paradise is not worth it? This man spends from the beginning of the night until Salat al-Subh, how many hours? 4 hours? 5 hours? 6 hours? And only receives 10 dirhams. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to spend 1 hour of your precious sleep, and then He will reward you with paradise. Jannah arduha as-samawati wal ard. Now He educated His son. The way He spoke to His son made a big difference to the son taking in and liking and loving. If we take that as an example, if our elders, if our parents can deal with their children and bring examples and communicate in this kind of simple manner, not forcing their children to do specific acts, because they will do it and they will leave it after a couple of days. Many of the sisters who engage in teaching children, they tell me, some of the girls or some of the boys, they pray, but after a while they leave salah. They leave prayer. Now this is very simple. It's because the real existence and the real need for salah has not been explained to them. all that has been explained to them is that you need to pray, wake up and pray, and that's it. Now, Islam comes and teaches us, Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam teaches us how to relate to our children and to our youngsters. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. الإمام زين العابدين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه كان يبذل الآلاف من الدنانير والدراهم حتى يستقطب الغلمان ويعلمهم ثم يرسلهم إلى أوطانهم وبلدانهم حتى يعلموا الناس. في الحديث الشريف في الرواية أن الإمام زين العابدين اشترى أكثر من 100,000 عبد ثم علمهم، فقههم في الدين، وبعدها في العيد كان يعطيهم مبلغ من المال وكان يقول لهم أنت حر لوجه الله، ارجع إلى أهلك. هذا لما يرجع إلى أهله راح يبدأ يعلمهم، يفقههم بمعالم دينهم. الروايات كثيرة والقصص كثيرة، حيث أن الإسلام ورسول الإسلام ورسول البشرية المصطفى محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يحثنا على طلب العلم. وكذلك هناك الكثير من الأحاديث والروايات تحرض الأب والأم والقادة والكبار في المجتمع على طريقة التعامل مع الأطفال حتى يكبروا، حتى يتعلموا ويتفقهوا. يقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عندما يبلغ الولد أو البنت سن 7 أو 8، هذا هو بداية المرحلة التعليمية لهم. يجب على الأب والأم وعلى المؤسسات والمراكز والحسينيات والمساجد والهيئات الثقافية والخيرية أن ينتبهوا على هذه النقطة والركيزة المهمة، ألا وهي استيعاب هذا العمر المعين للتعلم والتفقه للدين، حتى إذا كبر الطفل، هذا الشاب لما يوصل إلى عمر المراهقة، بعد الأب والأم والمجتمع ما يعانون من قلة فهم هذا الشاب، لأنه بعض الأوقات نشوف القدرات الكامنة في هذا الشاب أو الشابة، العقل والعاطفة. العقل والعاطفة لازم متساويان بنفس المستوى، اثنيناتهم يصعدون. بعض الأوقات نشوف شاب العقل عنده 10% والعاطفة عنده 70%، هنا تصير مشاكل داخلية ومشاكل عاطفية بينه وبين الأهل بالبيت. إذا العقل يكون مستوى عالي بدون عاطفة تصير مشاكل، إذا العاطفة أكثر من العقل تصير مشاكل. فلازم يكون هناك توازن بين العقل والعاطفة، خد عين. الأب والأم المجتمع بينهم يرتبون الوضع الجوفر شكل اللي هذا الطفل ينمو ويكبر في جو علمي ثقافي فقهي أخلاقي، حتى إذا وصل سن المراهقة وسن البلوغ لا تكون هناك المعارك الطاحنة بين الشباب وبين الكبار. نذكر شيء يسير من المصائب ونسألكم الدعاء. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. الإمام زين العابدين سلام الله عليه عانى الكثير والكثير حيث كان حاضرا مع والده الحسين، ورأى وشاهد ماذا جرى وماذا صنعوا بوالده يوم العاشر، حيث عندما دسوا السم إلى الإمام السجاد والإمام الباقر جالس بجوار والده. الإمام الباقر كان يرى والده يبكي ويتألم، كان يخاطب والده يقول له: سيدي ومولاي، أمن شدة الألم أمن شدة السم تبكي؟ كان يجاوب الإمام زين العابدين: لا والله ولا كلا يا بني، أني أتذكر ماذا جرى وماذا صنعوا بوالدي الحسين بجدك الحسين في يوم العاشر من محرم. واحدة من الصور أنه في آخر لحظات حياة الإمام الحسين وهو مخمض بدمه وهو مخضب بدمه، جاء ودخل إلى خيمة علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، أراد أن يودعه للمرة الأخيرة، والدم يخضب بها وجهه يخضب بها صدره. شاهده الإمام زين العابدين، قال له: أبا ألم تقل لهم أنك ابن بنت رسول الله؟ ألم تقل لهم أن جدك النبي أن أبيك أمير المؤمنين؟ ألم تقل لهم أنك ابن فاطمة الزهراء؟ قال الإمام الحسين: نعم بني يا علي، حينما قلت لهم أنا ابن فاطمة الزهراء رموني بالحجارة. أبو حمزة يأتي إلى الإمام زين العابدين يقول له: سيدي يا ابن رسول الله، أما آن لحزنك أن ينفذ؟ بكيت كل عمرك سيدي يا ابن رسول الله. يقول له الإمام زين العابدين: يا أبا حمزة، شكر الله سعيك جزاك الله خيرا، ولكن يا أبا حمزة، هل سمعت أذناك امرأت عيناك أنها شمية لنا تسبى قبل يوم عاشوراء؟ يا قلبي يا أبو حمزة ترى وتفطر وذايب مثل المصيبة اللي دهيتني ما حد صايب، ذيك الأقمار اللي بمنازلنا يزهرون، والليل كله من العبادة ما يفترون. إني رأيت 17 من أفراد عائلتي يذبحون كالأضاحي أمام عيني يا أبا حمزة، 17 عاينتهم كلهم غصون، فوق الوطية مطرحين بحر الترايب، ولهفي لزين العابدين وقد سرى أسيرا عليلا لا يفك له أسر. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون، والعاقبة للمتقين. يا الله، باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم، وبالخمسة من أصحاب الكساء، وبالذرية الطاهرة لسيد الشهداء، اقضي حوائج المحتاجين، شافي مرضى المؤمنين، عجل في فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان، واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يدي يا الله. اللهم ارض عنا إمام زماننا، واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه تحت لوائه يا الله. إلى أموات المؤمنين والمؤمنات ومن مات على الإيمان، سيما أرواح أموات الباذلين والسامعين وباذلي الطعام في هذه الليالي المباركة، خدمة الحسين شيعة أمير المؤمنين العلماء الأعلام الذين مضوا في طريق أهل البيت عليهم السلام، رحم الله من بعث لهم ثواب سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.